Next thing we're going to talk about is the TikTok ban. And there's a lot of little nooks and crannies. And, if you want to go down the rabbit hole about what's going on with this TikTok ban, a lot of interesting, juicy conspiracy theories. But on the surface, what is happening is lawmakers are discussing a bill that will essentially ban TikTok. The outward reasons given for this are things mainly China. The CCP controls TikTok, and lawmakers are concerned that they're doing bad things with that influence and power. They're gathering data and misusing it. They are feeding our impressionable youths information that is not good for them. So these are the outward justifications for this.
It all seems totally like it makes sense, right?
It does, and it's not stuff that hasn't been talked about before. And
Right.
I'm not on TikTok. I don't think TikTok is a good platform. I also think that it is rotting people's minds. But however, I kind of feel the same way about Instagram, right? I kind of feel same way about like social media in general.
Yep.
However, that's not to say there are not positive aspects of social media, and that's also not to say that, even more importantly, if you do ban TikTok, we know what's going to happen. It's just a vacuum. I mean, YouTube and Instagram literally they've been trying to replicate TikTok on their own platforms for a while now. So they would probably just rush in to fill that void. So if you're worried about impressionable young people, it's just going to happen on YouTube instead. It's just going to happen on Instagram instead, realistically. Now, if your argument is that, well, maybe it can be on a different platform, but it should be an American company making that money. Okay, that's fine. I get that from a state interest point of view. But at that point, this bill is nothing but just like you're just being the arm of Facebook or YouTube, right?
Yeah.
That's not to say that I defend TikTok. I mean, you should know by now that I'm anti CCP every single opportunity. But I don't think that this bill will change the landscape of toxic social media stuff that young people have to look at. And not even just young people. You see old people on TikTok too. It's rotting everybody's brain. Writing bills to put the technology genie back in the bottle, you know my opinion on that. That never works. That never works. You have to address these problems in some other way. But there are other angles on it, right?
Yep.
You recently talked about an angle where this is actually about crypto. That's a conspiracy. I would put that in the category of conspiracy theory, but there's a lot of stuff that is coincidentally been bad for crypto that's been happening. If you're the type of person to connect dots, these dots they don't seem too hard to connect.
Right. So basically, there's talk on Twitter pointing out that if you interpret the language in this bill, it's called the Restrict Act, I think, right? If you interpret it pretty literally, it could be easily used to justify, banning Bitcoin, for example. I read it, and it seems reasonable to interpret it as it would give them, the power to ban
Yeah,
Bitcoin if they wanted to.
right.
And I think,
That takes a maybe an imaginative reading of the law. I read it too. It didn't scream crypto to me, but good lawyers can carve out precedent from stuff you didn't think they could, and then suddenly it's a de facto law, right?
but the thing is, we also have precedent where they issue these things, I don't, Patriot Act or whatever, and they get wind up abused, right?
Yeah.
So
Sometimes it
I
just
am.
takes like a little sliver of a window.
What would you normally do if you wanted to ban something and you didn't have the power to ban it? I mean, would you like what's the normal procedure in that case? Do you pass something like this, which is much more general, and then just say, "Oh, this thing falls into that category, therefore we
Well,
should
the
now ban it"?
procedure for something like that, I imagine, but this is speculation because I have never been in high levels of government and never done something like this, but I imagine it would look like exactly like what you're seeing right now. It would have to be multi-pronged and it would have to be hidden. You couldn't just say, "Hey guys, we're doing all this stuff because we want to ban crypto." No, you would do things like,
Yeah, I'm saying like, what if you just wanted? What if you really just wanted to ban TikTok,
"Oh, what
but
if
you
you really
didn't
just
have?
want to ban TikTok?"
Yeah, but you didn't have the power to do so.
So this is
Okay,
all very new space.
but yeah, but it's actually kind of a little bit more general question. I mean, like
What
think
if you
about
wanted to
something
ban a company?
like Standard Oil or something. Back when there weren't laws against monopolies or whatever. There had to be
Well,
the
first they had to
first thing.
create those antitrust laws. They had no
Yeah.
power before those laws were created. And I think somebody mentioned they wanted to make TikTok like be sold to an American buyer or something. And that's kind
Right,
of
right.
similar to what's happened with Standard Oil, right? But just for background, the reason why some people think that this is part of a larger effort to undermine crypto is we had the bank failures, which on outwardly it's about interest rates and bonds and illiquidity, blah blah blah. But some people believe it's more targeted than that. It seems to have been just the banks that deal with a lot of crypto and the government stepped in at just the right times for these banks to fail or be taken over by the Fed. And so they think there was a part of an effort to undermine crypto. And we recently had the SEC say that it's going to crack down on Coinbase for, selling securities. And then now you have this where people think that the TikTok ban, the language in this law is actually broad enough that it could be applied to crypto in some ways. So you have a lot of actions that are not outwardly about crypto, but at the end of the day could coalesce and put the kibosh on it. And
Could they in theory just create a law that bans TikTok? Like, could they actually just name it, just single it out by name and just pass a
no,
single purpose
no,
law?
no,
Does that ever happen?
there's no law where you could just say, hey, so and so, you can't exist as a company. Well, why? There has to be some
But
kind of
how is
regulation.
that really different? Because ultimately it just comes down to the votes, right?
Yeah, it's just well, theoretically you could. Theoretically, I suppose you could. You could write up a bill and the language could be anything. The bill could literally be let's put Kanye West to death tomorrow. Why?
Yeah,
No reason why. Let's just vote
yeah,
on it. And
yeah.
Congress could vote on that bill. It's not going to win, but they could
I
write up
mean,
such a law.
I would prefer that in this case because then there's no they could obviously write justifications for why they're doing it in the text. But then there isn't this possibility of overreach, and people would be much
True, but
clearer
like that's not the way. I
on
mean,
what
keep
this
in mind
does.
that Capitol Hill is full of lawyers. They're not gonna. It's almost against their DNA to just write exactly like we just want to destroy this company, and so I'm just gonna write in one sentence, "Let's destroy TikTok" as the bill, and then everybody let's vote on it. That's not how they do it. It's always gonna have all this language, that lawyers do, right, to cover their asses and
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I'm looking at this right now.
so what I'm trying to say is that if their intention is just to ban TikTok, or if their intention is to ban TikTok and also introduce language where they can attack crypto,
Yeah.
those two bills will kind of look similar. It's going to contain some of the same language. It's going to look, similar.
hmm
It's not just going to say, "Hey, we hate TikTok. Let's get rid of it." That's not the sort of language you'll see in a bill that lawyers write. So
Okay, but what do you think about this? So this section 3. It says it's called addressing information and communication technology products and services that pose undue or unacceptable risk.
if you were on their side and thought they were being sincere, it sounds like language that's perfectly reasonable, honestly. Problem is, of course, somebody could just say, hey, what's also harmful? Crypto.
Exactly. I agree with you actually for the first 10 seconds or so. But then after, like, if I was trying to, I'm innocent and this is, I'm creating this law, I would read this and I would say, yeah, that seems reasonable. And then 10 seconds later, it would occur to me, whoa, wait, I would realize that this sounds also very broad
Well, here's the
and
issue.
that,
I
and that
mean,
many things could fall under this.
yeah,
What is unacceptable risk?
here's the issue. I mean, if your goal is to get rid of TikTok, you wouldn't want the language to be super narrow either. I know you're just trying to get rid of TikTok, but you're thinking about, oh,
Yeah,
could
yeah,
they
you don't want TikTok 2 to come out and then
Right,
you have
right.
to write
Could
another
could there
bill.
be like a TikTok 2, or could TikTok itself squirrel out of this if the language is too narrow? You would still write it with a certain amount of breadth, even assuming that you don't have like
So yeah, okay. So maybe what we really need is a crypto bill of rights, so
yeah, yeah, that would help.
that is
That would help
known.
if
That
somebody
is
made that.
known.
Right.
I do agree. If you kind of step back and you look at things from a very abstract level, like how could TikTok harm the US and how could Bitcoin harm the US, right? And those harms, do they overlap? I think they probably do. I'm guessing they do
Right. I
somehow.
mean, we are pro crypto, so of course we're going to have a biased opinion about it. But yeah, you reasonable people could make arguments that yeah, crypto is a threat in this and that way.
Well, it's a
And
threat to the dollar, so it's clearly a
oh
threat to the
yes,
US.
clearly, yeah.
This is just pure speculation, but like it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was some small group of people who are in the know and actually are aware and want to use this bill to basically attack crypto. And whereas most of the majority are all just acting as useful idiots. They're
Right.
all,
It's
they
possible
will
there's
basically,
layers of
yeah,
I mean, yeah,
TikTok
you're
is
seeing
bad for the
examples of
US,
useful
blah blah
idiots
blah.
right now. That's really shocking to me. I mean, on the right, of course, there's the anti-TikTok because it's, anti-CCP. Like it's a good talking point for people on the right, right? On the
Yeah.
left, I don't know, for some weird reason they're defending it. I think it's like literally just because young people like TikTok, and that's why the left is defending it. I defend it just because I feel this is a futile. You're not stopping the ill effects of a TikTok. It makes me laugh when people like Tim Pool come out and say, "Yeah, I'm for banning it." I'm like, you were just the free
Yeah.
speech absolutist yesterday, right?
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
would have to say that, yeah, as much as I dislike TikTok, I think sticking with, a more principled approach, I think I would have to be against the ban of TikTok. I think it's an example of trying to solve what's really a cultural problem
with
with
legislation, and which never works.
legislation. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. Let's be real. Everybody has everybody's data at this point, right? Like, you ever get those warnings where they say, "Hey, your password is known on the dark web and whatever on these 116 sites, and all your passwords are
Yeah.
all known." And I don't even give a fuck anymore. Like, if these people want my password, they can just have my password, right? I just don't even care anymore.
You should use a password manager though.
I do use a password manager, but it's a bad one, and I won't say what it is, just because social hacking exists, but
A text file on your computer.
I will not say what it is. I will just say it is wrong, and I know that it is suboptimal and wrong. We're dependent on the number of passwords that exist and the size of the internet that we don't get targeted, right? That's really what we're hoping for at this point. All your data is out there, right? Like your nudes are out. Like, have you ever sent nudes or something?
I have
Multiple
not.
people have access to that. Multiple people can access your nudes. If you have anything on the cloud, multiple people can access that. Sorry to say, however, you're safe because there's just so many nudes out there. There's so much data out there, and you're a nobody. You're a nobody. However, of course, if you are a somebody, then you should be much more careful about this sort of stuff. But most of us are nobodies, so it doesn't even matter. Irrelevance is our shield.
Don't you also think it's kind of ironic to complain about, brainwashing or whatever from China when we have the mainstream media here? I mean, how is it any different, really?
Right. Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. I
how
mean,
does it
a
solve
lot of
any problem?
yeah, this is a thing that a lot of conservatives will say is like, well, you know what? All the young people who are communists and they're for UBI and reparations and communism and all that stuff, they're all on TikTok. Like, that's just because that's the platform young people are on. It's not because TikTok, they might be pushing these sorts of views forward, right? But these are the actual views of fucking idiots in your country. China wouldn't be able to push forward the Marxist, dumbass, reparate all these views, these dumb views. China wouldn't be able to push them to the top of the algorithm if you didn't have young Americans who had these views.
Yeah, and they're being brainwashed by quote unquote educators, right?
And where do they get a lot of these views? In the American education system. China doesn't control. So these people are getting these ideas, and these bad ideas are spreading just fine without Chinese TikTok. Now, if you say that Chinese TikTok exacerbates the problem, maybe, and I wouldn't argue with you if you said it did, but the percentage impact, I would argue, is so minor, so minor. The root problem is what we're teaching young people, how we're raising them. I hate China, but in the long curve of history, it is kind of fair play, and turnabout is fair play, right? Because remember the whole Opium War thing, right? When we we flooded China with opium to weaken them, right?
Yeah.
And what if they're doing that with TikTok now? I guess it's fair play. Like, kudos to you. I mean, we'll try to fight it still, but and even in that situation, the same argument could be made. Like, we can flood your country with as much opium as we want, but what's the other part of the equation that needs to happen? Well, your Chinese citizens have to take the opium, right? I wasn't part of, I'm not, I'm Asian, so I wasn't part of Western powers at that time. And my ancestors were in China taking the opium at the time. But I still acknowledge the responsibility that, hey, maybe we should have just not have taken opium. Look, if I was running China, I would just look at the United States and I would just think, I don't need to do a goddamn thing to destroy this
Exactly.
country.
Exactly. It's already it's
I'm
yeah.
just looking at these
Killing
people
itself.
and they've got the pronouns in the bio, okay, and they're letting their children chop off their genitals, and I'm just thinking, just wait it out. It's just a matter of time.
It is.
Yeah,
It seems, I mean, if something doesn't change, it absolutely seems like it's
China has people who still love their country and are pro-China, right? Irrationally so, but still, irrational love for your country is really, really bullish for your country. That's how Americans were in the 50s, and we were the strongest fucking country on earth. That's how Chinese feel about their country right now. You ever watch those YouTube videos where there's this white guy playing like this video game and he's playing with Chinese people, right? I think it's like some battle
the one
royale
that's
game.
kind of number one.
Yeah, the Taiwan number one, right? So there's this white guy who just says in a broken Asian accent, he says Taiwan number one, right? And all these Chinese people just go nuts. He's clearly not even Taiwanese, right? But he just says Taiwan number one, and they just go crazy because they are so nationalistic and they love their country so much that they can't even abide this white guy on a video game saying Taiwan is awesome, and they have to scream at him. And like, you can say, oh, they're unhinged, they're irrational, they're stupid. Like, yeah, they are, but they love their country and they are going to put the interests of their country first. And I don't even think their country is good. I think China is a bad country. But however, you can't deny that this is bullish for the strength of their country. And we don't have that here anymore. If there was a Taiwanese person who was on a video game and said, "Hey, America sucks," and there were Americans on the other side of it, I bet you anything that most of the Americans on the other side would say, "Yeah, I agree. America sucks for this is that reason." Like, "Oh my God, we kill black people. Oh my God, we have homeless, like whatever, right? We have all these sorts of things, and we're racist. And even though America's not racist compared to other countries, we're this, we're that, and there's wealth disparity. Even though practically everybody in America is fucking rich compared to the rest of the world. And they will cite all these problems as if you should be ashamed, and there will be no pride. I mean, some people, maybe.
You know what, though? Personally, my pride in the country actually has taken a dive in the past month or so. And that's because of kind of the slowly growing realization of how we attained and abused our status, with the having the world's reserve currency, basically.
What is the problem with how
That,
we attained it? We attained it through like violence and bullying and manipulations. That's how everybody attains power, though. Is that bad?
it's too complicated, I think, my answer is yeah, it's too complicated
Oh,
because it's hard to weigh the pros and cons. Where would we be right now without that, right? Probably be in a much worse situation.
right. So we were justified
But
in
okay, let
doing
me
it.
put it this way. I can understand why other countries might hate the US.
Oh, yeah, I totally understand why
Right?
other countries might hate the US.
Yeah.
I don't blame them at all. There's no obligation to love the major superpower. There's no obligation whatsoever. But here's the thing.
Yeah, but I think what changed,
All of those countries would have done it had they been given the chance.
right,
They just couldn't do it. They didn't have what it took to do it. They weren't in the position to do it, so they didn't.
right. But it's quite a different view, compared to thinking that the US are the quote unquote good guys.
Oh, I see. So at one point you thought they were. See, that's where we're different. I never thought the USA were good guys. I just thought they were
Yeah.
my guys. and that's
Yeah,
good
exactly.
enough.
That's actually the point, the position that I find, I'm kind of forced to take it.
Yeah.
I think is just pure selfishness. It's my country.
Yeah, it's
I
my country
support
and
it,
it's in my
basically.
self-interest. So if my
Yeah.
country behaves in a way that it does benefit my self-interest as an extension of their self-interest, then I'm for it. And I think that's the real politic position that most people should just be taking and should be forced to take. If you want to believe that your country is the good guy, I'm sorry. There's no country that's the good guy. And any country that looks kind of like a good guy, they're only in that position because they couldn't be any more than that.
Yeah,
Kind of
I
like
agree.
kind of like how friend zone beta male is very nice to all women, and it doesn't cheat on women, and he's always only nice to them. He's not Chad who runs through all the hottest women and just does. You know why? You know why? It's because you didn't have the ability to do it. If you had the ability to be Leonardo DiCaprio, the only time a man can say that he has morals or whatever, he is if he's of that stature, right? You have to be of that stature before you can say, "Oh yeah, but then I didn't behave like him." And I'm sorry, the vast majority of guys who have the ability to behave like him do, and the ones that don't, half of them are gay. Your country is not a special. Not the good. It's not the good guys. It's a well. There are better guys. There are some guys that are a little bit better than others, but nobody's truly a good guy. People generally look out for number one. Everybody is self-interested, and hopefully they treat their own citizens pretty well, and other citizens not too bad.
I mean, it also made me reevaluate all the military spending that we do, right? It sort of, it kind of justifies it in a weird way.
It does, and this is always an argument that
Where
I've
basically,
made. Yeah,
yeah, basically, if you just think about it, is you're basically pouring money into the dollar. Is
correct.
kind of that's yeah.
Correct. All of the money we spent killing people in the Middle East, you are just supporting the petrodollar. And if you don't understand what the petrodollar is and you don't think it's relevant to the fact that you are the richest citizen on average, an American, the richest citizen on earth, and you have an HD TV and a car in the garage, you're wrong. Those are all tied together. The fact that we have the strongest currency and we control that area of the world, they're all related. And we only control that area of the world because we're willing to kill people in that area of the world because we are such a strong military. Now, does that mean we've always made the right choices and we've always spent our dollar efficiently? Were there some times that we should not have done stuff and wasted some money and we could have achieved similar impact? Yeah, that can be argued. But the idea that
Yeah,
this is
I
such a
actually feel like
go ahead.
that's a lesson we need to learn the hard way right now. So
It is, and
in that
it's
sense,
an
I
ugly
feel like
lesson, but you have to learn it.
yeah. So in that sense, I feel like I wouldn't. I'm scared, but on the other hand, I'm also thinking maybe we should try it. Like what does the world look like when the dollar is not the king?
What does the world look like
I
when the
think
dollar's not king, and also when we're not king, right?
right, right. Well, basically, what I'm saying is that I think it would force us to be more efficient,
Yes,
more productive, more efficient,
yes.
and all this excess will just get cleaned up.
When the
I think.
chips are down, people, people do have a tendency to focus and really get down to business. I do give people credit. I don't think Americans are stupid. I don't think Americans are lazy just inherently or whatever. We've just gotten to this point because we've been winning for so long. We've been on top for so long. So we have the
We've been
luxury.
gorging. We've been gorging.
Yeah,
It
we
is
have
time
the
for a diet,
luxury of
basically.
caring about trans issues or whatever, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
in the 1950s when there was a full-on Cold War and it wasn't clear whether America would end up on top or the Soviet Union would end up on top, there was no time for any of this other BS. Okay, we had to be on our game. We had to employ Nazi scientists. We had to invest in STEM. We had to build a great highway system. We had to invest in our military. We had to invest in our space program. We had to beat the Soviet Union. We had a mission and we had a clear goal and a contest and an antagonist who could beat us. But when the Soviet Union fell, it was just kind of like, oh, we won. So it's time for us to get fat.
Here's a little bit of pushback on this, though. I was thinking, what if you look in history at previous empires that have fallen, right? Is there any evidence that their population sort of like wakes up and tries harder? Like I'm thinking, like the British, the Dutch, whatever. It
Well,
seems
I mean,
like
the best example would be the Romans, and then your answer would be no.
right, which is kind of that
But
feels
we've not had
because
that
I
many
yeah
empires in recorded civilization, so it's a small sample size. We don't know that we can't turn it around.